Mum! How are you? What's been going on?
Grandma, come and see us. Auntie, how's your health? How are you doing? How is everyone? We really want to see you. We missed you.
The state of Israel is trying to divide the community between Druze, Christians, Bedouins, Shirkas, Muslims. It is trying to separate faiths inside Israel. For Israel, the west coast of the Golan is inhabited by Druze Muslims that it wants to distance from their Arab Muslim homeland. It's an Israeli strategy. But after 40 years of occupation, we in the Golan Heights remain aware of our Arab Muslim identity.
We're on one of the most symbolic sites of the Israeli-Arab conflict, the so-called Shouting Hill in Syria. A no-man's land under UN control separates us from the Golan Heights. Seized by Israel in 1967 during the Six-Day War, the heights were annexed in 1981, a measure not recognized by the international community. It led to a mass exodus of Arab inhabitants. In addition to some 18,000 Israeli settlers, the Golan Heights is made up of 22,000 Druze, most of whom consider themselves Syrian and refuse to take on Israeli nationality. Opposite us is Mujdal Shams, the biggest Druze village to be separated from Syria by the boundary line. Divided for 40 years, families are seldom given permission to visit each other by the Israeli authorities. News travels by megaphone in what's known as the Shouting Valley. Damascus's views on the Golan, as featured in this special report, are reflected by Medhat Saleh, an important figure in Syria and in Mujdal Shams, his home village. Held for 12 years in Israeli jails for, he says, resisting occupation, he's Syria's chargé d'affaires for Golan. Today he has a rendezvous with other former inmates still in Mujdal Shams.
For 23 years I have been on one side and you on the other. But God willing, the barriers will soon disappear and the barbed wire will be torn down. We have been hoping that for 40 years. Will we have to wait another 200 years to get the Golan Heights back for this hope to be fulfilled?
Echoes from the Shouting Valley will ring out throughout this report, devoted to the Syrian view of the Golan Heights issue.
There is huge suffering in the Golan Heights. There have been a lot of deaths. My brother was held for 20 years in an Israeli prison. He came out because he had cancer. In the absence of treatment, he had cancer, and they wouldn't let me go to say goodbye to him before he died. How long would it go on? The inhabitants of Golan are seeking a solution. The suffering is unbearable. Enough is enough.
Golan is the name the couple have given to their little boy to perpetuate their cause and their identity, they say. The historical claim can be added to the economic stakes of a fertile region known as a significant source of water. But it's mainly over security that things have stalled so far. Amid attempts to find a compromise between Israel and Syria, the Golan Heights are at the heart of indirect talks launched this year. Damascus's position is firm, emphasizes this geopolitical expert, who also advises the Syrian leadership.
Damascus, the current situation, including the airport of Damascus, is in the range of one tactical day of the operation of the Israeli army, as long as they continue to occupy the Golan. Strategically speaking, I don't think that any leader in Syria would think about peace with Israel without recuperating the whole Golan.
Back to the small part of the Golan that's remained in Syria. We're crossing the ghost town of Quneitra, the scene of clashes between Israel and Syria in 1967 and 1973. Captured by Israel during the Six-Day War, it was returned to Syria in 1974, but left as it was to bear witness to the destruction. It's not far from there that we meet Salam and her family. Her parents are among those who fled the Golan Heights in 1967. Their land has remained in the hands of family members who stayed. Meanwhile, they have made an identical reconstruction of their orchards here.
Apples, peaches, cherries, olives. We've done the same thing as over there, thanks to God. We have planted the same trees here that we had there. We are still living in the hope of returning home. My children were all born here, but they too have nostalgia for this land because we have talked to them about it so much. Why do you think my daughter married a man from over there? I told her so much about it. Her aunts, her uncles, they are all over there with the family.
He came here to study, that's how we met. From the beginning, my parents implanted this feeling in me, love for the country over there. Nothing would stop me leaving. I felt that I'd met the man who could make my dream come true, to go and see our land and our country.
The dream came to an abrupt end. After 5 years studying medicine in Damascus, her then fiancé left to prepare their home in Majd al-Shams. But it was impossible to find work there as a dentist, and impossible for his future wife to get the green light from Israeli authorities to go and join him. After a year's separation, the young man couldn't stand it anymore.
I was forced to return with the bitterness of leaving my father, my mother, my brothers, my sisters, and my homeland. I came back here and got married. At the wedding, my father wasn't there, nor my mother or brother, no one in my family. And now I have a daughter, but my family does not know her. They have never seen her. The suffering has lasted 40 years and is passed on from one generation to the next. If I had taken Israeli nationality, we could stay over there. But since 1967, our families have refused that, and we are following their example. I can't destroy what my grandfather and great-grandfather have built up by accepting an Israeli identity card.
The couple haven't abandoned their plan. The family says it's counting on the new Israeli-Syrian talks mediated by Turkey. They're all ready to leave immediately.
We're putting a lot of hope into these new talks. If we get the Golan back, nothing will stop me from going there. We have a house there. And the main thing is that we will have got back to our homeland. I'll settle over there.
2 days later, we witness a rare event. During an annual pilgrimage, hundreds of Druze religious leaders from the Golan Heights are allowed to cross the buffer zone with the mediation of the Red Crescent. It's a special day for the family of little Elisa, who's meeting her paternal grandfather for the very first time. So ends our look at the Golan from the Syrian perspective. The Israeli viewpoint is very different.